The English word angel comes from the Greek word that means messenger. Now, in Mary's case, God's messenger was a literal angel, a powerful spiritual being that resides in heaven and beholds the face of God. But God doesn't always use those types of messengers. He uses other types of angels as well to send us his life-giving, creative words. Common messengers. And those are what I'd like to reflect on in today's conference. I want to talk about 5 common everyday angels that God uses, everyday messengers that God uses to send us his words. The more we're familiar with them, the more we understand them, the better chance we'll have of actually listening to them and welcoming God's words when they come through these messengers. The first messenger, the first common angel, is mental prayer. Mental prayer is otherwise known as Christian meditation. Now, it's different from vocal prayer. In mental prayer, we don't use someone else's words. It's not just saying prayers. That's vocal prayer. And it has its role. It has its purpose. But in mental prayer, it's more of a reflection. It's taking time, silence, and listening to God's word, reflecting on his words in the scriptures. And when we do this, we give God's dynamic word a chance to resound in our soul. We give the Holy Spirit a chance to turn our attention to things that he wants us to focus on. Now, mental prayer is not easy to do because it's based on faith. It takes a lot of faith. It's not like going to a movie and just watching the movie. You don't need faith to see it. You can just enjoy it. But in mental prayer, it's always mediated by faith. We believe God is present, and we believe he wants to speak to us, but we don't see him directly. We always have the intermediate space of faith. So it's very helpful to have kind of a method to use in mental prayer. And I'd recommend a very simple method if you want to get started or if you kind of want to jumpstart your own Christian meditation practices, the 3R method. Read, reflect, respond. That gives a structure to your time of mental prayer, so that can kind of give a channel for you to exercise your faith. And the way it works is you begin by reading. You take the Bible or maybe a good spiritual book, and you read just a short section, maybe a paragraph, maybe a little part of a chapter. You read it slowly, and you read it over again, and that's the first R, read. Then the second R is reflect. After you've read it, you start thinking about it. You ask yourself questions. What does this tell me about God? What does this tell me about his church? What does this tell me about how I can be happy? And you apply what you've read to your life. You reflect on it. And as you do that, God will inspire you with new insights and nourish your soul with the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So that's the second R, reflect. And the third R is respond. So in the reading and the reflecting, you've been listening to God's word. And when that happens, you'll find that your heart is touched in some way. And you'll want to respond. You'll want to speak in your own words in the silence of your heart to God who has spoken to you through your reading and your reflection. You might want to thank him. You might want to ask him for a grace to be as patient as Christ was on the cross, for instance. You may want to tell him you're sorry for your sins. Any one of these modes of responding are fine and valid. And that's the third R, respond. Read, reflect, respond. A simple structure for you to give to your mental prayer so that you can give some space for the Holy Spirit to speak to your heart. Mental prayer is an ancient practice in the church. It's been used by all the saints, and I recommend that you give it a shot as well. It's one of the ways that we can welcome God's messengers. It's one of his common angels that he uses to send us the words he wants us to hear. The second common angel that God uses to send us his messages is God's will. Now, God's will is always an expression of his love. When he asks us to do things, it's only because he loves us, because he is pure love. And the essence of his word, his revelation, is love. So whenever we welcome God's will, whenever we obey God's will, we're welcoming his word. Mary shows us this in the Annunciation when she says, "May it be done unto me according to your word." Now, God's will comes to us in many different forms. And whenever God asks us to do something, he's manifesting his will. And he actually asks us to do a lot of things. He asks us to follow the 10 Commandments. He asks us to follow the commandment to love our neighbor, to forgive our enemies. He asks us to follow the church teaching. He asks us to to be responsible as we carry out the duties of our state in life. He's always asking us to do things because those things that we can do are a way for us to grow in love and to follow his path to the happiness that he created us for. Whenever we say yes to those things, whenever we obey his will, we're welcoming his word. Now, sometimes his will comes in some other forms as well. The circumstances of life, sufferings, difficulties, challenges, these too are things that God permits. He doesn't necessarily ordain them to happen, but he permits them to happen. And Mary too teaches us how to welcome his will in those circumstances, just as she welcomed God's will when she stood at the foot of the cross and watched her son die at the crucifixion. We need to accept God's will, embrace it, trusting that he knows what's best. So this is the second common messenger of God, his will. He asks us to do things, he allows things to happen in our lives, and when we obey and embrace his will and accept it, we're welcoming his word. The third common messenger God uses to send us his word is the beauty that we find in nature and in art. Blessed John Paul II described beauty as God's goodness made visible. And so when we behold a beautiful sunset or feel the beauty of an ocean breeze, that's God telling us, reminding us that he loves us. It's his word, it's his creation. When we're fascinated by the infinite expanse of a star-filled night, that's God whispering in our hearts about the infinity of his goodness and his love. And when music inspires us, when stories fascinate us, when a painting or a sculpture intrigues us, that also is God reaching into our hearts, challenging us, inviting us, revealing himself in some way to us. To welcome these experiences of beauty is to welcome God's word. Finding ways to do that, finding space for us to experience the beauty of nature and art in life is not a waste of time. It's a way to welcome God's word. I remember a long time ago, before I was even a Catholic, when I was in college, I was driving through the foothills of California. And I was rising up the top of one of the hills, and there was a cemetery there, and I was by myself. I pulled over, and I went to the cemetery, and there was a beautiful view of all the valleys around. And I kind of sat there, and I had my Bible, and I was praying. I was really transfixed by the beauty of God's nature. And I saw about 100 feet below me in the valley a hawk gliding. And it captured my attention. And I watched this hawk as it glided, didn't move its wings once, and it just found the currents of air and gradually came up about 100 feet till it was level with me and continued to rise, just floating on the currents of air, never moving a feather. And it rose and rose until I couldn't see it anymore. And I still remember that experience as an experience of God's word speaking to me, saying, "This is how much I want you to trust me. I want you to spread your wings and allow me to uplift you and to lead you in life." The power of God's word in the beauty of nature and of art. The fourth common angel that God uses to send us his word, his messages, is those inspirations that seem to come out of the blue, but are really from the Holy Spirit, who so often works from within our minds and hearts. These are the ideas that come to us and impel us to action, sometimes in little things, like maybe calling a friend we haven't talked to in a long time, visiting a family member, signing up for that Bible study at the parish, maybe inviting a colleague to come with us to Mass. Sometimes the impulse to action has to do with bigger things, like following a vocation to the consecrated life or the priesthood, marrying a particular person, changing a career path, sponsoring or supporting a large work of Christian evangelization or Christian charity. God has involved us in the project of building up his kingdom. And so he gives us tasks. He gives us good works to do under the power of his grace to help build up the kingdom, to help fulfill the purpose for which he created us, to live in communion with him and follow our path to happiness. Now, sometimes these inspirations come like a flash, and we know immediately they're from God, no doubt about it. Other times, they kind of grow gradually. It's kind of an insistent voice in the back of our mind that doesn't go away. And gradually we come to realize, hey, that's God speaking to me, and I need to do something about it. That's how it was for me personally in the discernment of my vocation to the priesthood. The first time that I heard God's voice inviting me to be a priest, I remember vividly and distinctly. I wasn't even Catholic. I was in college on a tram, and God spoke almost. I couldn't hear, it wasn't physical words, but I heard in my heart, you should be a priest. And it was completely surprised. I wasn't even Catholic, as I mentioned, but it was the beginning of a process. And I remember it was kind of like a sunrise. Gradually, the horizon got brighter and brighter until a few years later, I took the step of entering the seminary. Now, it's not always easy to know if these ideas come from the Holy Spirit or if they maybe come from ourselves. But with prayer, reflection, good advice, and most importantly, if our hearts are really seeking the face of God, we will know eventually. The Holy Spirit will make it clear. So this is the fourth common angel, the inspirations of the Holy Spirit. The fifth way that God often sends us his messages is simply through the goodness of other people. And we see this in the Annunciation. At the end of the Annunciation, the Archangel Gabriel tells Mary about Elizabeth, her cousin, who's now pregnant. In her old age, a surprising pregnancy. She became the mother of John the Baptist. As soon as Mary hears the word, she rushes off to go and help her elderly cousin, to take care of her, to help her pregnancy. And as soon as she arrives, she brings more than just human comfort to Elizabeth. She walks in the door, and Elizabeth recognizes Mary's presence, and John the Baptist in Elizabeth's womb recognizes the presence of Jesus and leaps in his womb, and Elizabeth is filled with the Holy Spirit. This is one of the famous encounters in the gospel between Mary and Elizabeth. An encounter of simple kindness and charity where Mary is reaching out to her cousin in need, and that brings the Holy Spirit. Elizabeth welcomed Mary's kindness, her act of generosity. And we too should welcome the kindness and the goodness of those around us when they reach out to us, when they support us. Those two are signs of God's goodness. They are God's love acting through other people. And we can welcome them, and we welcome God's word. We shouldn't demand them from other people. We shouldn't insist that they treat us with kindness and goodness. But when they do, it is good to welcome it. It is good to humbly accept those kind actions and gestures as a sign of God's goodness, as an indication of God's love for us. When we welcome those things, we're welcoming God's word. These then are 5 common angels, 5 common everyday messengers that God uses to send us his word. Mental prayer, God's will, the beauty of nature and art, the inspirations of the Holy Spirit, and the goodness and kind gestures of other people. The more aware we are of these messengers, and the more consciously we seek to hear God's word in them, the better welcomers of the word we will become. And then the drama of salvation, which played itself out first in the life of the Blessed Virgin Mary, will play itself out in our lives as well. And Jesus, who came into the world first through her, will continue to come into the world through us. There's an ancient tradition in the church that can help us stay in tune with this drama. It's called the Angelus. The Angelus is a vocal prayer that replays, in a sense, the Annunciation. In medieval Europe, it was the tradition of Catholics to pray this prayer 3 times a day. Actually, not just in medieval Europe, but for many centuries and still in many places today. It's a tradition to pray the Angelus 3 times a day, somewhere around sunrise, somewhere around noon, and sometime around sunset. In medieval Europe, in all the different towns and cities and villages, the church bells would actually be rung at these 3 different times of the day, and all the inhabitants of the area would stop whatever they were doing to pray the Angelus. You may want to revive this ancient tradition in your own life as you seek to become a better and better welcomer of the word. We've put the words of the Angelus at the end of this retreat guide for your convenience. But now take a few minutes and reflect prayerfully on the 10 questions of the personal questionnaire, which are designed to help you listen better and better to the 5 common angels that God uses to send us his word.